we are gathered here today, and we have Dr. Gerard Puccio with us, and we're going to have a conversation about creativity and mainly have fun. He is here to give his talk about the importance of creativity as a skill to thrive in the 21st century, and we are really honored for that. So I am Arpan Yagnik, and I'm a faculty member over here at Department of Communication, and I'm honored to be with you in your presence. And one of the first things I wanted to ask you is why creativity? So what made you get into creativity?
Well, it's an honor for me. So Arpan, thank you for having me here. I'm delighted
Pleasure.
to chat with you and to share my expertise. So you asked two questions: why creativity, which is a very big question, and a second question: how did I get into the field of creativity? So let me start with the second question, because that's much easier and and actually connects to the very place where we're seated now here on Penn State Barron campus. So back in 1980, I graduated from high school and in a small town not too far from here, northeast Pennsylvania, just across from the border of New York, PA. Yeah, close to Ripley, New York. So it seemed like a natural thing to do is to go to a college in my own backyard. So I came here, spent my freshman year here, started to study psychology, which is what I had an interest in studying. And after a year, I decided, wanted to branch out, do something a little different, get away from home, and ended up transferring to Jamestown Community College, which is like half an hour, 45 minutes from here, and was introduced to this topic of creativity through my academic advisor. So I didn't go seeking it out, it was just serendipity.
Came to you.
It just happened, yeah, I made this decision, and who knew that one decision forever altered my life? Because once I became interested in the topic of creativity, and I should say, the reason why I ended up at Jamestown Community College was to join the wrestling team. So in high school, I was on the wrestling team, and I wanted to get back into that athletic endeavor, and Jamestown had top 20 junior college wrestling team, so I wanted to pursue athletics for a few more years as as best I could. And it turned out that taking this creativity course, as I mentioned, forever changed the trajectory of my life, because what I began to realize, which gets into why creativity, is that once you begin to explore your creative imagination and your potential and your talents, you begin to discover the power that you have inside, the thing that drives you, what makes you unique, what makes you distinct. And as a result of that experience, I wrestled for a year on the team there, but decided to pursue other endeavors, mainly around leadership, and got much more involved in student government and clubs and so forth. So I began to recognize the potential that I had in, I was going to wrestle for a couple of years, but that wasn't going to take me into a career. It was a sort of an outlet to have. But when I discovered the power of creative thinking and creative problem solving and creative leadership and these sorts of concepts, it made me more self-confident, made me more self-assured, and it really gave me a firm foundation to work off of.
Wow. So. That is pretty awesome. So when you said creativity chose me, immediately what came to my mind is that the wand chooses the wizard. The Harry Potter reference.
Yeah.
So creativity, of course, shows you, and that's awesome. And then something that I can relate to is, once you realize the power, how it makes you feel different. Creativity is sort of a very liberating force in some ways, and I think you put it very well, that you feel self-assured and you realize how distinct you are and how you stand out, and it makes you a lot more confident. And so that was your experience to begin with, and then it seems like you've fallen in love for it forever. So then how did it become a mission of you to make other people fall into love?
Well, that's a great question. So almost every major decision in my life, when I came to a fork in the road, take this pathway or this pathway, the route that I always chose to take was to further my commitment to the study of creativity. So after finishing 2 years at Jamestown Community College, fork in the road. Where do I go to finish my 4-year degree? Well, I had this image of a small liberal arts college somewhere off in the mountains, and then I discovered Buffalo State had an undergraduate program in creativity. Which do I pursue?
So it already existed?
Yeah, the program at Buffalo State had already existed, so I decided to go to Buffalo State, where I majored in psychology, got a minor in creativity. Then I completed my bachelor's degree. Where do I go now? Clinical psychology PhD or master's degree in creativity. Had 2 options. I pursued the master's degree in creativity. So every time I came to a fork in the road, I recommitted. And the powerful thing about having choices is it makes you very clear about what you want. And I was very fortunate to have a series of choices in my life. And each time when I finished my PhD at the University of Manchester, had an opportunity to live and work in Europe for a company most of us know.
Where in Europe?
So Brussels, Belgium, where the headquarters is for Procter & Gamble. That's the company that offered me a job. And at the same time, I was offered an academic position at Buffalo State as assistant professor. So it was, you know, multinational company working in the area of human resource, or Buffalo State, returned to Buffalo State as an academic, where I could pursue this love, creativity. So my passion, and you know, coming back to your question, what has stoked, why am I interested in sharing what I know about creativity with others? Well, I just know how transformative it has been for me. I know that it has made me, the study of creativity, it's really studying yourself. You know, it's one of those subject areas where it's not outside of you, it's not some dry content that's arm's length, but when you study what creativity is and you reflect on it, it's like holding a mirror up to yourself, because creativity fundamentally gets at what all humans have inside of them. It defines who we are as a species. You know, compared to all species on the planet, we have this unique competitive advantage. I mean, frankly, if you look at the human species and you compare us to other species on the planet, we're not fast. We can't naturally camouflage ourselves. You know, we can't exist in a great range of climates without constructing solutions for ourselves. But because we have imagination, we've been able to construct those solutions, and now we inhabit all corners of our planet. So it really is fundamentally what defines what it means to be a human being. So I studied organizational psychology. That's what I did my PhD in. And I realized that organizations were often very good at confining people, putting up barriers to their ability to bring their creativity into organizational life. And so I was really interested in what are the things that I can do, because organizations say the most important asset are human resources, but often because of organizational practices and mechanisms and poor leadership, do a very poor job in drawing creativity out of employees. And so part of my passion is to help people, help organizations be more effective at tapping into the creative talent that exists.
And that's something really awesome, because I feel and I believe that creativity, and you've said leadership and you've said culture. These things go really hand in hand. A culture of creativity can make a huge impact. But the role of a leader in cultivating that culture of creativity, I think is really important. So you've been on both the sides. You are a leader of your unit at Buffalo State, and you've been training these leaders. So based on some of those experiences, why is it sometimes difficult to cultivate a culture of creativity? What challenges does a leader have, or what can a leader do? Any of these things, if you can touch upon these things, because I think they're fascinating.
Yeah, Pan, you ask big questions.
Sorry
no,
for that.
They're great, challenging questions. So, in terms of what is it in organizations culturally or leaders specifically that get in the way of creativity? In an organization, there are, well, if you look at the word organization, to organize. And to organize means you need to have systems and structures. So if you look at like the trajectory of an organization from startup to growth phase to maturity, often it's the spark of creativity, right? That is the impetus to a startup.
So that's the big bang.
Yeah, it's the big bang. And then that organization, in order to be successful, has to enter into a growth phase, and to enter into a growth phase, to get up to scale, you need to get organized. You need to have systems. You need to have policies, procedures.
More systematic.
Things must become predictable.
Yes.
And they do. However, what happens is that begins to, if you will, become the dominant part of the culture, because the organization wants things to be predictable. They want things to be efficient. They want things to run smoothly. And as a consequence, new ideas, new ways of thinking, that disrupts systems. And so you get this conflict between new thinking versus accepted practice, right? And organizations are notoriously famous for sustaining current systems, but not very good at being able to engage in and accept new ways of thinking. So if we look at, you look at Blockbuster, for example. So Blockbuster, people who are watching this, if they're my kids' age, they'll barely remember Blockbuster, but I remember growing up with Blockbuster. It's what you did on Friday night. You went to the shop to, it was a big night out. It was a ritual. It was a great experience. Blockbuster became Blockbuster because they had a very innovative logistics system. So they figured out how to move videos around very efficiently, and that's allowed them to, grow exponentially. But then the environment changed. In an innovative environment, you had someone else come along because of technology with the digitization of movies.
And Blockbuster could not become Netflix.
Exactly. And they had the opportunity, which is the really interesting thing, because their paradigm was brick and mortar. This is our business. We're really well organized to be able to manage this business as it is now. They had the opportunity in the mid-1990s to buy Netflix for something like $50 million, but they passed up on it because they said that's not the business we're in. So that's why organizational culture often gets in the way of creativity, because it's more focused on looking in the rearview mirror, and looking at what's in the past and trying to project into the future by looking backwards rather than looking forward. And that's one of the reasons why creativity, I've been in this field now for nearly 40 years. One of the nice things about having longevity is you get to see trends. And one of the things that's absolutely clear is that in the 21st century, in an innovation-driven economy, if you're not changing, if you're not willing to challenge your own legacy models and so forth, then the risk you run literally is your survival.
So from a survival of the fittest point of view, I think creativity is going to be the game changer. So one of my professors who had actually introduced me to creativity, she would always say that, research has a very important position, but research helps you identify something that has happened in the past or is currently going on, and based on that, it enhances sometimes your predictive ability. But with creativity, you actually create new trends. and businesses need to be, and that goes with exactly what you're saying, that they are looking in the rear view mirror in the past. So instead of creating new trends, they are saying this is not who we are, and we want to stay blockbuster. We don't want to become Netflix. So that's pretty awesome. And talking about the research, I was curious as to if you can share some of your works in your research, and I know that you've written quite a few books and things like that. So
yeah, sure, happy to. And that will help me to circle back actually to one of your questions around leadership. So number of areas of focus and specialty. One is leadership. And the reason why I'm so interested in leadership comes back to your question about culture and the research, what we know in terms of the variables that contribute to an organizational atmosphere, environment, culture, select any term you wish to use to describe the psychological space that people work in. The number one variable is leadership behavior. So depending on who you read, anywhere from 40 to 70% of the psychological atmosphere, the degree to which creative thinking is supported, or whether there's a focus on power and control and top-down, that is linked to leadership behavior. So, and when I say leadership behavior, I don't want to strictly talk about organizations or limit it to organizational life, because the classroom, the atmosphere that the teacher, professor in the classroom creates, who in that setting is going to make the most significant contribution to the atmosphere in that space, in that classroom, the degree to which debate is allowed, or ideas are supported, or there's playfulness, or students are able to take risks. Well, it's the teacher. In the home, it's the parent. So when I talk about leadership, leadership is making a difference. It's having an influence.
It's about the role, not just the position.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's an area that I'm very interested in, because I know the tremendous impact leadership has in terms of shaping the psychological atmosphere. I'm also very interested in leadership because leadership is a reflection of the times. How we conceive of leadership. In some ways, creativity as a concept is a bit more stable than I would suggest leadership is, because creativity fundamentally is that ability to produce original ideas that are valuable. And 300,000 years of human development, that's always what creativity has been. It's having a problem, responding to it with a new idea, and if that idea resolves that problem, whether it's a tangible problem or intangible problem, that's what creativity is. But leadership is a reflection. How we think about leadership is a reflection of the times. And today, with a fast-moving world, an innovation-driven economy, a world that's characterized by change and volatility, leadership has to look and feel different. And now there's an argument, not just us at Buffalo State or in my own work, but a number of others now say that leaders need to be creative thinkers. They need to be able to respond to change effectively, so they need to be cognitively flexible. And bottom line, leaders solve complex problems. So they need to tap into their own creativity, because as the world's changing rapidly, you're facing on a reoccurring basis more and more novel situations that don't have easy answers. And that old model leadership, traditional leader having all the answers and telling people what to do, well, with complex problems, that doesn't work really well. You need to be able to facilitate and engage with others so that you bring the best thinking to the table, so that together, collectively, you're in a better position to solve a complex problem. So leaders are creative problem solvers, which brings me to my second area of focus as a scholar. So I believe in the power of creativity, and I believe in not leaving creativity up to chance, just waiting for the lightning bolt to strike you, right? That's, coming back to the wand. Someone waves a wand and suddenly you get a creative idea. And one of the things that we know is by learning ways to think, cognitive strategies, by learning cognitive strategies, you can move creativity from a chance occurrence to a deliberate, systematic outcome.
So just to add, like earlier when you said that, what creativity, there is a problem and we respond to that problem with a creative solution. So it's sort of maybe a chicken and egg type of a question, but without problem, can creativity exist? And I think you were going into that direction to have more of a systematic approach that doesn't have to have a wand. So without a problem or the existence of a problem, what is the, or what is creativity then?
Well, it's interesting. There's that old saying that necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
But you need imagination. So you could say mother is necessity is the mother of invention, but the father is imagination. So it's the marriage between necessity and imagination. You're right. You need a problem, but I define a problem in a highly psychological way. Anytime there's a gap between where you are and where you wish to be, and if you're not sure how to close that gap, there's a need for creative thinking. And if we take problems and we break them down into two broad areas, there are problems that present themselves to us that we have to react to.
Okay.
So reactive problem solving. You're presented with a problem. Oh gosh, sales have dropped. We don't know why sales have dropped. We need to get our sales back up again. Student enrollment has dropped. There's a high, attrition rate. We don't know what to do. You don't have a formula to follow. That takes creative thinking. However, sometimes you have a situation where you wish to be proactive, and you look at the situation, you say, well, here's an opportunity. No one sees this right now, but if we take this technology and we digitize film, we can eliminate these expensive brick and mortar shops, and we can deliver, we can use the technology. That's a disruptive, innovative perspective. So that's another kind of problem.
So connecting the dot between what is and what could be.
Right, exactly.
In some ways.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think this was great. And I really want to thank you for your time and your insights into creativity. And I wish we could just keep going on and on and on, because I'm really having fun. I don't know about you, but maybe I'm being selfish over here.
No.
This is great, and thank you so much. But I'm going to leave you with a few seconds to give your lasting thought about creativity. You get the last word.
Okay, so I gave an assignment years ago to a freshman class, and they were keeping a journal, and I would always pose a question at the end of class, and then write about it. The next day I would, or the next time we had class, I would look at their journals, and I asked them, hey guys, why do you think it's important to study creativity? I'll never forget this freshman wrote, I think it's important to study creativity because when we study creativity, we study ourselves.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so very much. Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.